From the dusty streets of Dakar to the brightest stages of European football, the story of Idrissa Gana Gueye begins long before the world ever knew his name. It begins in a narrow alleyway in the heart of Senegal, where the heat rose from the ground like steam and boys chased battered footballs long past sunset. In that alley was a quiet child, thin, wiry, barefoot, and Camus' eyes carried both innocence and something else, a soft rebellion, the kind that lived in the souls of those who refused to accept the life they were born into. Every evening, while other kids argued about whose team was winning, Idrissa stayed focused. He didn't boast, he didn't shout, he just played relentlessly, intensely, with a concentration that made him look older than his years. Coaches would later say they saw discipline in him before they ever saw talent. And maybe that's why he survived the journey that breaks most before it begins. His family lived modestly. In their home, love was abundant, money was not. His mother worked constantly, always choosing sacrifice before rest, and Idrissa absorbed that ethic like scripture. His father spoke few words, but the ones he offered stayed carved in the boy's mind. You, Danti, have to be the strongest. You only have to refuse to give up. In a world where thousands played football, dreaming of making it out, Idrissa understood early that talent alone was never enough. What he had instead was hunger, quiet, controlled, and unwavering. At the neighborhood tournaments, he wasn't the flashy kid with tricks that drew crowds. He was the one who never stopped running. The one who won the ball, even when winning it seemed impossible. The one who made every team he played for better, even if he was barely noticed. That, ironically, was his gift. He carried teams on his back without making it look like he did. His journey into professional football truly began at Diambars Academy, a place many young Senegalese dreamt of but few reached. Getting accepted wasn't just a blessing. It was a miracle of timing, luck, and relentless performance. Diambars wasn't just an academy, it was a portal. And the moment Gana walked through its doors, his life changed direction forever. The academy demanded everything: discipline, physical endurance, emotional resilience, and academic focus. Many kids broke under the pressure, but Gana evolved. Coaches saw him differently here. He wasn't just a hardworking kid from Dakar, he was a midfielder with instincts beyond his age. He had a natural ability to read the rhythm of a match, to intercept danger before it existed, to win battles without needing violence. His game was intelligence wrapped in endurance. At night, while others slept, Gana stayed awake, visualizing his future. He didn't dream of fame. He dreamt of responsibility, of lifting his family out of hardship, of building a life where his parents would no longer worry about the next month. That sense of duty became his engine. Opportunity came from a country he had only seen on television. France. Lille, OSC, believed in his potential and offered him a path into Europe. It was the moment he had prayed for. But when the time came to leave Senegal, guilt and hope collided inside him. His mother hugged him tighter than ever before. His father whispered blessings over his forehead. And with a single suitcase, Gana boarded a plane to a world colder, bigger, and more intimidating than anything he'd known. In Lille, reality hit fast. The weather was freezing, the food unfamiliar, and the football brutally competitive. For the first time, he felt small. Training was harder, players were stronger, and the pace was overwhelming. But every night, when loneliness tried to consume him, he remembered his family's faith. And every morning, he returned to the pitch with determination sharpened overnight. Slowly, piece by piece, he built himself into a starter. Not flashy, not loud, just indispensable. By the time Lille won the Ligue 1 title in 2011, he wasn't the star of the team, but within the locker room, everyone knew how essential he was. His teammates trusted him, his coaches relied on him. His style of play, simple, selfless, relentless, became his signature. But his rise had only begun. The Premier League noticed him, and in 2015 he arrived in England, signing for Aston Villa. It was a new chapter, but not an easy one. The team struggled, results slipped, and fans were anxious. But even amid chaos, something became undeniable. Idrissa Gueye was a machine. He tackled, intercepted, chased, shielded, and covered every blade of grass. In a season where almost everything went wrong for Villa, he was one of the few things that went right. Then came the moment that validated years of sacrifice. Everton wanted him not just as a signing, but as a foundation. They had watched him dominate games quietly, subtly, expertly, and they knew he possessed the rare quality money couldn't buy: reliability. Gueye accepted the move with the humility of a man who had survived too much to be arrogant. At Everton, his legend grew. Fans adored him. Opponents feared him. Analysts ran out of words to describe his work rate. But perhaps the most telling moment of respect came not from a fan or a journalist, but from a player. Every midfielder in the world measured themselves against N'Golo Kanté. When Kanté publicly praised Gueye's intelligence and defensive mastery, people began to look more closely. He wasn't just a destroyer, he was an architect of stability. But the biggest twist in his career came from Paris. Paris, Saint-Germain, home of stars. Record signings, supernova, talent wanted, Idrissa Gana Gueye. And when PSG wants you, the world notices. It was validation of a lifetime of quiet work. But fame had never been his goal. What drove him was the chance to compete at the highest level, to make his country proud, and to test himself against the world's elite. In Paris, he faced Neymar, Mbappé, Di Maria, every day in training. And he didn't just survive. He thrived. He outworked and outclassed some of the greatest attackers on earth. Champions League nights became the ultimate arena for his fire. Against Real Madrid, Manchester United, Bayern Munich, he was fearless. But beneath the bright lights, another story unfolded, one that would define him beyond football. Gueye became a symbol in Senegal, not just for his ability, but for his humility, his devotion to faith, his quiet strength. He built schools, supported communities, donated without headlines, and remained deeply connected to Dakar. His success never disconnected him from his roots. It strengthened them. While others chased luxury for display, Gueye lived differently. His lifestyle was comfortably but never excessive. He enjoyed nice cars, good food, and modern living, but always with moderation. His true wealth was family, charity, and the sense of duty that carried him from Dakar's dusty streets to Europe's most iconic stadiums. But life, even for the disciplined, has moments of turmoil. Controversies, criticism, misunderstandings, Gueye faced them all. And every time, he responded with the same quiet resilience that defined his childhood. Never loud, never defensive, always grounded. The story of Idrissa Gana Gueye enters its next chapter, where the lights grow brighter, the expectations heavier, and the world finally begins to understand what Senegal had known all along. Greatness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it moves quietly, tackling anything that stands in its way. When Gueye arrived in Paris, the football universe tilted slightly in his direction. Not because he was the biggest star in the dressing room, he wasn't, but because he represented something rare in modern football. Pure substance. In a team filled with attackers who shined like supernovas, he was the silent gravitational force that made everything orbit smoothly. At PSG, he discovered an environment unlike anything he had ever experienced. Training sessions felt like international matches. Talents from Brazil, France, Argentina, Italy, and across the world collided daily. The energy was overwhelming, electric, and volatile. But to Gana, it was simply another test, a new terrain he would adapt to like he always had. Life in Paris was beautiful but demanding. Each morning, he drove past monuments he once saw only in textbooks. The Eiffel Tower, the Seine River, the grand boulevard, symbols of a world far removed from the narrow streets of Dakar. Yet despite the city's glamour, he moved through it with quiet modesty. He still sent money home, still supported his community, still remembered where he came from every day. The Champions League became his proving ground. It was where the world finally saw the full scope of his power. Against the giants of Europe, Gueye played as if destiny depended on it. His performance against Real Madrid, interceptions, tackles, relentless pressing, was so complete that pundits compared him to the greatest defensive midfielders of the modern era. That night, he wasn't just good, he was colossal. And yet, if you asked him afterward, he would dismiss it with a shy smile and say, "I was only doing my job." But beneath that humility, PSG's staff saw a man who carried emotional weight far heavier than 90 minutes on a pitch. Gana wasn't just playing for himself or for Paris, he played for Senegal. For every child running barefoot on scorching streets. For every family struggling to survive. And for every young dreamer praying that football could be their escape. He held those hopes like a responsibility, not a burden. Then came the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. Senegal had reached finals before, they had come close. But they had never lifted the trophy. As Gana arrived in camp, you could see the resolve in his posture, calm, controlled, unshakable. This was personal. This was destiny. The tournament itself was a storm of emotions. The pressure of an entire nation can crush even the strongest players. But in moments of chaos, someone like Gueye becomes vital. He was the heartbeat of the midfield, the anchor, who made attacking possible. The wall that protected everything behind him. And then came the semi-final. The air was thick, heavy, suffocating with tension. Senegal were locked in battle. The score tight, the crowd roaring. Football is unpredictable at its core, but sometimes destiny chooses its moment with precision. As the ball rolled across the midfield, Gana stepped into space with rare aggression. A passing lane opened just an inch. He seized it. One touch, a shift of balance, a stride forward, and then a strike. The net shook, the stadium exploded, and Idrissa Gana Gueye, the quiet guardian, became the hero of a nation. That goal wasn't just a point on the scoreboard, it was a release of generations of heartbreak. It was the moment Senegal felt the weight lifting from their shoulders. It was the moment the world finally understood that Gana was more than a destroyer. He was a man who rose when destiny called. Senegal marched into the final like warriors. The pressure was suffocating, the stakes colossal, and when the final whistle blew, and Senegal were crowned champions of Africa for the first time in history, Gana dropped to his knees, tears flowing freely. Not tears of personal triumph, but tears of gratitude, relief, and pride. A lifetime of sacrifice his families, his teammates, his countries had crystallized into that single moment. His medal was not just metal, it was memory, it was sacrifice. It was everything he had carried on his shoulders since boyhood. Back in Paris, his reputation had transformed. PSG fans respected him deeply. In the city of elegance, he became known not for glamour but for character, for dedication, for consistency. He was the antidote to ego in a team full of stars, humble, disciplined, and respected by all. But life is rarely linear. Challenges emerge, some public, others private. Decision-makers changed. Coaches shifted tactics. And suddenly, Gueye found himself back at Everton, the club that had once embraced him. It wasn't a step backward, it was a return to roots, a return to the Premier League, where his intensity had become legend. Back in England, his presence was like muscle memory. The fans remembered him, the players respected him, and even opponents knew one truth. If Ghana was in midfield, their evening was about to get uncomfortable. Off the pitch, he evolved into a man with deeper purpose. His philanthropy expanded. He invested in education and health initiatives across Senegal. He funded facilities for young players. He built opportunities he never had. While many footballers showcased luxury, Gueye showcased responsibility. His success didn't inflate him, it grounded him. His lifestyle reflected exactly who he was. Yes, he enjoyed comfort, a beautiful home in Europe, a modest but stylish collection of cars, occasional trips with family. But nothing was showy, nothing was loud. His wealth was managed responsibly, quietly, intelligently. He avoided unnecessary extravagance. His life reflected balance: spiritual, emotional, financial. His marriage and family life formed the core of his stability. With his wife and children, he found peace from the chaos of the football world. In private moments, school pickups, family trips, simple dinners, he found the grounding that fame could never provide. His children knew him not as a footballer, but as a father who knelt to tie their shoes, who prayed with them, who corrected them gently, who loved them fiercely. And soon, his influence became intergenerational. Younger African players began to look up to him not just for his football, but for his values. They saw in him something the modern game desperately needed, a reminder that humility doesn't weaken greatness, it elevates it. Idrissa Gana Gueye stands as a man whose journey has become more than personal success. It has become a roadmap, a blueprint of discipline, faith, sacrifice, and resilience. He is no longer just a midfielder. He is a symbol, a mentor, a national hero. And yet, his story still isn't finished, because legacies aren't built in the first act, or even the second, they rise in the quiet, reflective years when the world finally looks back and understands the true weight of a man's journey. As Idrissa Gana Gueye moves deeper into the later stages of his career, a profound shift begins to take place, one that happens not on the pitch but within him. The roar of stadiums, the sleepless nights before Champions League clashes, the adrenaline of European battles. These memories still pulse through his veins, but now, another force grows stronger: reflection. He starts noticing the small things, the way a young academy midfielder watches him at training with wide, eager eyes, the quiet gratitude from staff members he greets every morning, the look on his children's faces when he returns home after a match, tired but smiling. These moments, subtle and unspoken, begin shaping the next chapter of his journey, one where legacy becomes more important than accolades. Ghana is not the type to fear aging or decline. He embraces the process with the same discipline he embraced everything else. Instead of resisting change, he studies it. He adjusts his training patterns, listens to his body, protects his endurance with scientific precision. He knows the truth: the body ages, but the mind can still perform at elite level. And his football mind is sharper than ever. In training, the coaches see a different Gueye emerging. Still intense, still fierce in challenges, but wiser, more calculated. He no longer chases every battle. He chooses them. He teaches younger midfielders how to scan the pitch, how to anticipate danger before it appears, how to win duels without unnecessary fouls. His mentorship goes beyond words, it's in the way he moves, listens, leads, and corrects. At Everton, he becomes the silent bridge between generations. A mentor without needing the title, a leader without shouting. And when fans sing his name, it's not just for the tackles, it's for the constancy, the professionalism, the devotion to the badge. They see a man who never hid behind excuses, who never played the victim, who always showed up no matter the pressure. But beyond England, there is another world that still beats inside him: Senegal. The national team remains one of the deepest emotional threads of his life. Every call-up feels like returning to a family he grew up with. Every anthem moment feels spiritual. Every training camp, no matter how exhausting, feels like home. When he returns to Senegal for international duty, he is no longer the boy running barefoot on dusty streets. He is a pillar of the country's golden generation. Yet Ghana never allows worship or fame to distort who he is. When young fans surround him, he kneels to their level, speaking softly, eyes warm, signing jerseys with care. He knows that each handshake or smile may fuel the dream of a child who sees in him a version of their own future. And then, something beautiful happens. Senegal's football rises to a new era, not just because of one player, but because of a collective identity built on the backs of men like him. AFCON qualification becomes expected, World Cup progression becomes realistic, and Senegal stands among Africa's elite with confidence. And in every step, Gueye stands as a foundational block. But outside football, another chapter grows in silence. His humanitarian work blossoms. Ghana funds schools, he supports medical programs, he invests in youth academies. He builds opportunities for children who would otherwise be swallowed by hardship. His charity work is not done for cameras. In fact, much of it goes unnoticed by the public. He prefers it that way. He believes true generosity has no witnesses. His lifestyle, though comfortable, is still marked by moderation. His home is elegant but calm, filled with family warmth rather than excessive luxury. His cars are high quality but carefully chosen, not as trophies but as tools. He is the type of man who values stability over ostentation. And while many footballers display wealth, Ghana displays wisdom. He invests intelligently, protects his future, and ensures his family's security. His financial discipline echoes the discipline he shows on the pitch. Strategic, controlled, thoughtful, he refuses to follow trends or impulsive luxuries. In a world drowning in spectacle, he remains refreshingly grounded. Spiritually, he becomes even stronger. Faith remains his compass, the element that steadies him through victories, adversities, misunderstandings, and public scrutiny. He prays with gratitude after every match, win or lose. He centers himself in humility. In an era where football often collides with politics, media narratives, and controversy, Ghana moves with clarity because he knows who he isn't, who he is not. As time passes, younger midfielders begin approaching him with deeper questions. How did you stay consistent? What kept you disciplined? How do you stay humble with so much pressure? Gueye's answers are always simple, always rooted in truth. Know your purpose. Respect your gift. And remember where you come from. But amidst all this growth, there is one moment that stands above the rest, the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Senegal enters the tournament with hope, resilience, and unity. They face setbacks, injuries, emotional turbulence. The nation watches with hearts trembling. And although destiny takes unexpected turns, Senegal's presence on the biggest stage of world football becomes a symbol of pride, not defeat. Gueye, with decades of life packed into his calm eyes, becomes the emotional anchor of the squad. His leadership, soft-spoken, unwavering, holds the team together. He pushes, encourages, protects, guides. Even as the world scrutinizes, he remains unmoved. And in that composure, Senegal finds strength. Then comes the part of life most athletes fear. The gradual approach of the final whistle on their playing days. But for Idrissa Gana Gueye, retirement won't be an ending only, a transformation. He has too much wisdom, too much experience, too much heart to simply fade from the world of football. Whether he becomes a coach, an ambassador, a mentor, or a builder of youth academies, one truth is certain. His influence will outlive his playing career. His legacy will not be defined by goals or awards. It will be defined by character, by the kids he inspired, the communities he uplifted, the teammates he mentored, the sacrifices he made quietly, with dignity, the thousands of battles he fought in midfield without ever demanding recognition. In the end, his career becomes a reminder that greatness doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it is steady, consistent, humble. It is built not from applause but from discipline, sacrifice, and love for something larger than yourself. And so, as the final chapter of his football journey approaches, Idrissa Gana Gueye stands at peace. Because he knows the truth. He has lived his dream, not through luck, but through relentless work. He has become a symbol not because he sought fame, but because he embodied responsibility. From Dakar's dusty streets to Paris' glowing stadiums. From Premier League battles to African triumphs. From anonymity to national hero, his path remains one of the most inspiring African football stories of his generation. And long after he hangs up his boots, the world will still remember the man who ran, fought, prayed, and believed his way into history. Not for himself, but for everyone who came after him. This is the legacy of Idrissa Gana Gueye.